Climate change is becoming an increasingly important topic. It's on the minds of many around the world today. So right now, let's hear from a panel of experts about climate change.
My vision was to gather a premier group of scientists who examine the retreat of glacial ice on planet Earth with the intent to capture the picture of where we're at in 2015 and where we may be headed in these ecosystems.
For about 40 years, we have been drilling not only in Antarctica and Greenland, but in the high mountain regions around the world. And so the whole purpose is to trying to put together a long-term history of how the system has worked and interacted, and then particularly how it's changing in the 21st century. But in doing that, we've also documented the loss of ice that's taking place and the acceleration in the rate of ice loss in these high mountain regions, and particularly in the tropics, where every glacier that we've studied is retreating, and that retreat is accelerating.
I've had this project called the Extreme Ice Survey, where we have time-lapse cameras with their eyes on retreating glaciers in various parts of the world. And these cameras photograph approximately every half hour as long as it's daylight. We're making this big record of how the landscapes are metamorphosing in our time. I thought maybe here and there we would see a little bit of change in the first 3 years. And it was staggering to see what the cameras were witnessing just in a matter of a few months. At most of the sites. It was really shocking. But the vast majority of glaciers in North America, South America, Asia, Europe, Africa are retreating. And so we're bearing witness to that and keeping a record of what's happening.
We have warmed the world just a little under 1 degree so far. Now, in most of the assessments, the first degree of warming is very low in cost. Normally, we deal with a variable world. We have dealt with variability in the past. We've dealt with droughts. And so the first degree of warming has been pretty cheap, but we've used it up. The second degree of warming is expected to cost more than the first, because it's starting to move us outside of our comfort zone. It's starting to move outside of things that we're ready to deal with. And we're fairly clearly committed to that second degree of warming, because there is momentum in the climate system, there is momentum in the human economic system. I'm not walking home from Baltimore to Pennsylvania. So it'll take us a little while to make it. So we're arguing now about 3 and 4 and 5 degrees globally averaged. In Fahrenheit on land, we're talking about 10 degrees and more.
We've wound up being very involved with global scientific and cultural outreach. This is telling a story. This witnessing of what's happening with the ice has proven to be a very powerful thing that lay people, political figures, corporate figures, school children, university students, that everybody can grasp.
Richard Alley and I were starting in this field. There weren't a lot of people going in to study glaciers. It's only in the last 10, 15 years that when we really started to see the change and the potential implication of what's happening to these glaciers for all of us on this planet, has the importance of these the glaciers and the archives they contain really been realized.
It's sort of like left brain, right brain being integrated in the art and the science, and when people see those two polarities come together, there's this sort of aha moment that you don't necessarily get otherwise.